Good evening, everyone, and we are back for completing our discussion on unincorporated businesses. The whole point why, I think unincorporated business might seem like a challenge to some of us is that its provisions are, quite scattered here and there. And because it's not like CGT, where you have like some very, very definitive provisions, I believe this requires that additional layer of revision. So, one small point that we discussed in the last lecture was about the basis of assessment rules, wherein I told you that earlier the rules were pretty complex. There were different rules for first year, second year, third year, fourth year. And then, there were certain overlap profits and all that used to be created. But in this case, the calculation is different because now the basis of assessment has changed. All those confusing provisions have been removed. And now in in the year 24-25 onwards, the calculation is pretty straightforward. Okay, so from the tax year 24-25, profits are taxed on the basis of those that arise in a particular period. So, say for example, even if the actual accounting, so books of accounts could be prepared for a different period of time, but the profits are time apportioned. In the sense, if the business does not have a 31st of March, 5th of April year end, then the trading profits are time apportioned up to 5th. Matlab, you take the you write down the tax year, and then whatever number of months are there, uske hisab se you time apportion. In certain cases you might get a question on transition profits. We saw a similar question last week. So what happens in transition profits is the calculation A is not a part of your syllabus, so you can heave a sigh of relief. The transition profits are spread over 5 tax years, starting with one-fifth amount getting taxed each year starting from the year 23-24. If the business entity so elects, it can say, for example, it is expecting a loss in a particular year, then it can adjust all of the transition profits in that year only, or a higher amount over and above the one-fifth number. अब ये transition amount आपको, sorry, transition profits will be given to you. All you have to do is you have to adjust. इसके basis पे एक question हमने very recently we have done. Now, when it comes to losses of an unincorporated business, you have to be a little extra careful. Yes, Samir.
So the transition profits, even if they're transition losses, do we have the same applicability of one fifth, or we can redeem them all in the
Oh,
following
you
year?
can adjust all of them.
Perfect, sir. Thank you.
Honestly, transition losses might not necessarily occur because ये जो transition profits है ना, these basically come from older unrelieved profits and overlapping profits वाला जो concept था ना, वहां से this calculation comes. अब that calculation is not there, but in the rare scenario that they ask you transition loss, adjust it in one go. ठीक है. Now, when we talk about trading losses, losses of an unincorporated business, the loss occurs in an ongoing year. So, this is neither the first year of trading nor the last year of trading. So, what options do you have? You claim relief against total income of the current year, or you and then you carry forward the loss, or you straight away carry forward the loss, or route 3 is claim relief against total income of the current year, then claim relief against capital gains, and after that carry forward the loss. So three routes: carry forward all the loss, or adjust against total income of the current year, then carry forward, then adjust against total income of the current year, then adjust against capital gains, and then carry forward the remaining amount. When you are adjusting against total income, the claim is optional and the claim has to be made. Unlike carry forward, which is an automatic carry forward that happens. Relief against which total income is allowed: total income of the tax year of loss and or total income of the preceding tax year. So it's not necessary that you have to adjust it against the current year total income only. You can adjust it against the amount of the preceding year as well. And it can be done in any order. Okay, it's not necessary that it has to be done current year first and then preceding year. You could do only preceding and not current, only current and not preceding, first current then preceding, or first preceding then current. All the amounts are, all the different combinations are possible. Now, if you claim the loss, then you must set off the maximum amount possible, and you cannot restrict the set off of loss in order to conserve PA. This is a specific part that you have to keep in mind, because questions, you might get tempted to adjust a smaller proportion of the loss, and that kind of an adjustment, तो वो नहीं करना है आपको. For the year 24-25, the claim must be made by Jan 2027. अब explanation for a non-restriction of losses to conserve PA, एक बार ये देख लेना, because although it's okay at this point on 28th of August, when your exam is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 5 days away, at this point it's okay not to get into the logic, but it's better to remember the what part of it and the how part of it. Okay. If you are carrying forward the loss, it is an automatic carry forward. It can be carried forward indefinitely, and losses carried forward can be adjusted only against profits from the same trade. If you are adjusting it in the current year, you can adjust it against total income. When you are carrying it forward, you can adjust it only against the trading profits, nothing else. And maximum amount possible should be claimed. Claim must be made to establish the amount of loss carried forward and adjust the amount, and then if there is still any unrelieved loss, you can carry it forward to the next year. Then, relief against capital gains. A claim against chargeable gains can only be made if a claim against total income has been made in that tax year first. Now, say you want to adjust the loss against total income of the current year. You adjusted that. After that, you cannot go back and adjust the trading loss against capital gain of the last year. So, if you want to adjust it against capital gain of the last year, first you will have to adjust against total income of that year. Okay. Um, the amount of claim that can be made against chargeable gains is the lower of total gains in the year minus all capital losses for the year minus all capital losses brought forward, which means the first preference for adjustment is given to capital losses, then you adjust trading losses. Okay, and losses remaining after the claim against total income. If claimed, then the loss is treated like a capital loss in the computation, and maximum possible loss has to be adjusted. You cannot restrict the adjustment of loss in order to preserve or conserve the annual exempt amount. In the opening year, there are certain special provisions or special benefits that you get in the opening year. Opening year losses, relief against total income of the current year, then relief against chargeable gains. This is regular. Or opening year losses automatically carry forward. That is also, this part is regular. There is a special 3-year carry backward of losses that is different in case of losses made in the first 4 years of trading, by the way. When we talk of loss relief in opening years, the special 3 years relief, it is an optional claim, it is not compulsory, and it applies to losses arising in the first 4 years of trading. If a claim is made, the loss is adjusted against total income in 3 tax years before the tax year of loss on a FIFO basis. यहाँ पे special 3 year relief is on a FIFO basis. In cessation of trade, it is on a LIFO basis. So थोड़ा सा आपको ज़्यादा careful रहना पड़ेगा. There is no requirement that this particular trade in which you suffered a loss was being carried out in those years. Naturally, यार common sense की बात है. If you are talking about the first year, then this is the first year of trading. So how will you ever have any kind of मतलब first year होगा तो past में you cannot have a trading income from that particular trade, right? That's just completely absurd. Now, choice of loss relief in opening years. If an individual makes a trading loss in the opening years, the individual will have to decide whether to claim normal relief against total income, special opening year relief, or carry forward all of the losses. Where a normal claim against total income is made, any remaining loss is automatically carried forward unless the individual decides to make a claim against chargeable gains or special opening year claim. So the individual gets that choice कि आपको, you should make that choice, which is most beneficial for you. If the question says that the loss should be adjusted at the earliest and adjust it in the current year, the decision of whether to carry it backward, whether to adjust it in the current year, whether to carry it forward will depend upon quite a few different considerations: effective tax rate, cash flow position, and all of these points. So you will have to evaluate that on the basis of uh, those factors. Opening year relief, optional claim, applies to loss arising in any of the first 4 years. if claimed set loss against total income in 3 tax years before the tax year of loss on a FIFO basis. No need for trade to have been carried on. One claim covers all 3 years. If claimed, must set off maximum amount possible. Cannot restrict it to conserve the PAs. And what is the time period for tax year 24-25? ठीक है. What is this tax year 24-25? This has to be claimed by 31st of Jan 2027. ठीक है. अब carry backward में, say we know how carry backward works. When you carry it backward to the preceding year, then if you have already paid tax in the preceding year, you can get a refund of that tax. So if you are in need of cash now, you should go for this particular option. Okay. Now, when you are dealing with loss, prepare a year-on-year computation. Usme, if there is a trading loss, na, don't write minus 20,000. Keep it blank. Then take the total income and then do the adjustment one by one. Always remember that particular loss, which is the most restricted in many, many ways, is the one that has to be adjusted first. Now, what is the maximum deduction from total income? इस पे भी एक क्वेश्चन हमने किया है. Maximum deduction from total income is the greater of 50,000 pounds or 25% of adjusted total income. This limit only applies to total income. It doesn't apply to trading profits. Okay. Adjusted total income is calculated as, guys, just give me one moment. Okay. Just one moment. Okay. So this restriction on the deduction doesn't apply to adjustment against profits from the same trade. It only applies to adjustment against total income, and maximum deduction is higher of 50,000 or 25% of adjusted total income. Adjusted total income कैसे निकलेगा? Total income add payroll deduction scheme contribution, which is not going to be tested, less gross personal pension contribution. That gives you your adjusted total income. If the trading loss is carried backward, the restriction does not apply when you are adjusting the loss against profits from the same trade. It applies when you are adjusting against total income. Okay. It does not apply when the trading loss is set against profits from the same trade of an earlier year. So whenever you are adjusting against same trade of the earlier year, ये restriction apply नहीं करता है. When you are adjusting against total income, only at that point it will apply. The restriction is also relevant when the special opening year relief rules are applied and the loss is carried back to earlier years, and where a claim is made to treat a capital loss on qualifying unquoted trading company shares as if it is a trading loss and set against total income. Okay, restriction is relevant when the special opening year loss relief rules are applied and the loss is carried back to earlier years. If you are adjusting it against total income, naturally you will have to apply the restriction also. अब maximum deduction कितना ले सकते हो is again a critical calculation. I think in one of the questions that we did recently, this point was tested. Up, this was about an unincorporated business, but we were talking about an unincorporated business that was already functioning, or an unincorporated business that had started just now. But what do we do in a situation when there is an unincorporated business which is about to shut down? So, in that particular case, there is a different set of rules that will apply. So, let's talk about a situation of cessation of trade where the business is coming to an end. उस केस में क्या होगा? If the business ceases to trade, the key differences in the calculation of taxable profits will be dealing with post-cessation income and expenditure and calculating the capital allowances for the final period. अब ये post-cessation income and expense, because we have done this, fairly recently. If income is received in post-cessation period, it is subject to tax in the year of receipt as miscellaneous income. Think about a situation that मैंने समीर को पढ़ा दिया. आई टॉट समीर एंड ही सेड पैसे दूंगा पैसे दूंगा पैसे दूंगा. ब्लूटस एजुकेशन बंद हो गया. ओके. एंड देन Samir went and after 3 years he gave the money to Plutus Education. Plutus Education तो है ही नहीं. In that case, this money received from Samir cannot be trading income. It will be classified as miscellaneous income. Okay. Then, alternatively, it is possible to elect for post-cessation income to be taxed in the tax year of cessation rather than the year of receipt. The election can be made for income received in any of the 6 tax years following the tax year of cessation. And again, वो आपको you have a choice. When do you want to adjust? When do you want to consider that particular income? Talking about post-cessation expenses, a post-cessation expense is one which would have been an allowable expense had the trade continued. That is, it meets the wholly and exclusively test. So, if normally had the business, if the business was still in continuation, so what would you have done in that case? Would you have claimed that particular amount as a deduction? If yes, if the answer to that question is yes, then you will be allowed to claim that amount as a deduction even now. Otherwise, that amount cannot be claimed as an expenditure. Relief is only available for expenses paid in the 7 years after the cessation of trade. एक बार business बंद हो गया, after that 7 years तक you can claim some of these old expenditures, like I have shut down the business but I had given a warranty to someone and then that person comes knocking at my door and I have to pay for his free repairs or whatever, and फिर वो मुझसे पैसे मांगने लगा, then I have to pay that amount to him, right? In that situation, this expenditure will be allowed for a period of 7 years after the business has ceased. एक बार वो 7 year period is over, then you cannot claim. And honestly यार, 7 years in my opinion is a very long period of time. उसके बाद अगर कोई एक्सपेंडिचर आप इनकर कर रहे हो तो आई एम डाउटिंग योर कमर्शियल acumen in this case. So that's that. Having understood this situation, let's now talk about capital allowances. Okay. For traders electing to use the accrual basis and for traders using the cash basis and claiming capital allowances on cars, there are special rules for calculating capital allowances in the final period. No WDA, no FIA, no AIA. All additions are brought in, then disposals on cessation are dealt with. If the owner takes over an asset, the disposal proceeds will be the market value. It will give rise to balancing charge, balancing allowance. Now, you have a choice here. Okay, this is an important point. Succession to trade between connected persons. If a trader is claiming capital allowances and the business is being transferred as a going concern to a connected person, an election is available to transfer the assets at their tax written down value, thereby avoiding balancing charge, balancing allowance. So, if Harsh is a connected person, if Harsh is my brother and then I am transferring my business to him as a going concern, तो उस केस में क्या होगा? In that case, I have a choice that I can transfer the assets to him at their TWDV. So for me, there is no balancing allowance, balancing charge. When he acquires these assets for him, the TWDV for me becomes the opening TWDV for him, and on that he can continue to claim WDA in later years. There is an option that we don't make this particular election. Then TWDV of assets is 1 lakh. Satyame transfers the assets at 1,20,000. Since election is not made, the transfer value is 120. I will have a balancing charge. But for Harsh, he can claim WDA on the 1,20,000 because that is the transfer value. So this entire set of provisions is summarized here in this particular situation where Satyamed and a connected person, there is a transfer of trade by one individual to another and you make an election. They have also mentioned who are considered predecessor and who are considered connected. If predecessor and successor are related to one another, sibling, ancestor, lineal descendant, and spouses or civil partners, or are related by marriage or civil partnership, matlab my wife's sister and all of that. Then one is a partner and the other has the right to a share in that partnership. Same equation. One is a company, the other has a control over it. They are both partnerships and another person has the right to share in them both. They are both companies and another person has control of them both. All of these are connected persons. यहाँ पे we are only talking about sole proprietors or sole traders. ठीक है. Now, if there are trading losses in the last year, okay, closing year rules. In the final tax year, the taxable trading profit is calculated as profits from 6th of April to date of cessation and any remaining untaxed transition profits. If there are any remaining untaxed transition profits, then they will be taxed in this year. If the business is ceasing, matlab you were supposed to spread it over 5 years, you adjusted that, you had adjusted 2 years worth of profit, and now 3 years are left, but now the business is choosing to shut down, so any remaining untaxed transition profits will be taxed. Loss relief option in closing years. The options available in the closing years of trade are the same as those available to an ongoing business, except that the option to carry forward losses is not available, as there will be no further trading profits once the trade ceases. An extra option for terminal loss and an additional option for incorporation relief is available. See, carry forward का option नहीं होगा, because you can, when you carry forward a loss, you can only adjust it against profits of the same trade. अब same trade नहीं होने वाला है, तो naturally carry forward का कोई मतलब भी नहीं होता. How does the terminal relief work? Claim is optional, however will normally be claimed. Otherwise, the benefit of the loss is lost. Relief is to set terminal loss against trading income of the final tax year, if any, and then carry back 3 years on a LIFO basis. And terminal loss is loss of the last 12 months. Carry it backward for 3 on a LIFO. इसके पहले जो देखा था, it was carry back 3 years on FIFO basis in opening year rules. Relief against total income claim is optional. Loss in the final tax year can be set against total income in the final tax year and or the preceding tax year. As for an ongoing business, they have given the date by which the claim must be made, and the claim is optional. And it also applies to capital gains. And how do you calculate the terminal loss? Terminal loss is loss of the last 12 months of trading. So 6 months before cessation to date of cessation, and 12 months before cessation to 5th of April. इसके basis पे भी we have done one question, if you remember. So if my business is coming to an end on 30th of September, 6th April, 30th of September 2025, 6th April before cessation is 6th of April 2025 to 30th September 2025, and 12 months before secession is 1st of October 2024 to 5th of April 2025. ऐसे you will consider the last 12 months and the loss will be calculated accordingly. This is again one question that we have done in terms of the terminal losses. Straightforward question है, एक बार देख लेना, nothing out of the way. The relief on incorporation is an interesting one. When an unincorporated business ceases, the individual will seek to obtain relief from any losses as soon as possible. Okay, so यहाँ पे क्या करना है? Incorporation relief is available where an unconnected business is transferred to a company wholly or mainly in exchange of shares. That means at least 80% of the consideration should be in the form of shares. The relief is to carry the losses forward indefinitely, provided the owner retains the shares throughout the whole tax year in which the loss relief is given, and provided the company continues to carry on the trade of the former unincorporated business. Losses are set against the first available income the individual derives from the company. Can set off against types of income from the company in any order. Most beneficial order will be from employment income first, then savings income, and then dividend. अब समझो ये सुमित ने कोई बिजनेस शुरू किया इन बैंगलोर, ठीक है, and unfortunately he suffered a loss in a particular year. Now he has decided to convert his unincorporated business into a company. So अब इस सिचुएशन में क्या होगा? In this situation, whatever is the loss in his last year, ठीक है, उसके जो लास्ट ईयर का लॉस है, कैलकुलेट द टर्मिनल लॉस, एंड he transfers his entire business to the company, and he receives shares from the company, which is basically 80% of the consideration is received in the form of shares. Now whatever income Sumit receives from this company, the loss that he incurred in his sole proprietorship business can be adjusted against salary, interest, dividend, whatever he receives from this newly incorporated company. ठीक है, सो उसमें सब आएगा, सैलरी, इंटरेस्ट, डिविडेंड, सब कुछ आएगा. सो सुमित हैज नाउ इनकॉर्पोरेटेड अ कंपनी, दैट कंपनी गिव्स हिम सैलरी. अब सुमित का इनकॉर्पोरेशन के पहले का जो भी लॉस था, दैट लॉस विल बी एडजस्टेड अगेंस्ट द इनकम्स दैट ही इज रिसीविंग फ्रॉम दिस पर्टिकुलर कंपनी. इट कैनॉट बी एडजस्टेड अगेंस्ट एनी अदर इनकम एक्सेप्ट फॉर इनकम फ्रॉम दिस पर्टिकुलर कंपनी. ठीक है, when you are in the last year of business, ठीक है, when you are in the last year of business, what happens to the capital gain वाला situation, वो भी एक बार देख लेते हैं. Whether a sole trader sells a business, gifts a business, incorporates as a going concern, or sells off the assets to close the business down, this will represent a disposal for capital gains tax purposes. Separate gains or losses will be calculated for each chargeable asset of the business using market value as proceeds, where assets are either given or exchanged for shares in the company. So, there will be separate gain or loss calculations if he is disposing of the assets one by one. अगर एक एक करके वो asset बेच रहा है, तो naturally there will be individual gains or losses. The reliefs available to him in the last year are rollover, gift holdover, BADR, EIS, SEIS and investor relief. इनमें से कोई भी सी इन्वेस्टर रिलीफ का तो उतना क्लोजर ऑफ बिजनेस के साथ कनेक्शन नहीं है, बट बीएडीआर ऑफ कोर्स इज relief at the time of disposing of an unincorporated business, तो ये relief तो apply होगा ही. Okay. uh, what if you decide to transfer the business to a limited company? A sole trader or partnership may decide that it would be better to trade through a company and therefore incorporate the business. The individual or partners may choose to set up a new company for the purpose or transfer the business to an existing company. The business will cease at the date of incorporation. Plant and machinery transferred to the company on incorporation as is treated as an open market value disposal. If the trader is using cash basis, it will be treated as a trading disposal. So basically क्या होगा? Under the accrual basis, this will be treated as disposal proceeds for capital allowances. If the trader and the company are connected, they may claim that the assets are transferred to the company at their opening TWDV. So I have a business, sole proprietorship business. I am transferring that business to a company. Now me and the company that I control are connected persons. ठीक है. So if I am transferring my entire unincorporated business to the company and I'm transferring my assets, I can make an election to make the transfer at TWDV or I can transfer it at market value, in which case I will have a balancing charge. Okay, you know how to deal with SBS, उसका treatment हर जगह पे same ही है. Any SBS claimed by the trader will be added to sale proceeds, and you know how the gain is calculated and everything. National insurance contributions. As a sole trader, the individual will have paid class 4 NICs. As a director employee in the new company, uska class 1 NIC and class 1A NIC will be deducted. The assets of the business are treated as being sold to the company for their market value. There are two main ways in which relief can be given. It is incorporation relief or gift holdover relief. Incorporation relief we'll see in a minute. Provided the company is registering for VAT, the transfer of assets will be treated as a going concern, so not a taxable supply. If it is considered as transfer of a going concern, SDLT, where there is a company involved, SDLT will be payable by the company assuming the property is in excess of the SDLT threshold. This charge cannot be avoided by not transferring the property to the company. Yes, Harsh, bolo.
सर एक मैंने क्वेश्चन किया था जिसमें इन्होंने एसबीए के बारे में पूछा था कि कितना क्लेम करेंगे वगैरह.
Hmm.
अम, उसमें they didn't give exact dates of when the asset will be purchased and when it will be sold. They just gave a range. So, and in the answer I saw they didn't apportion the months for the SBA. So ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है एग्जाम में, तो फिर कुछ कैसे
Can
करना है?
you tell me the question number? I'll go through it.
ओके, I'll message you.
हाँ, एक बार मैं देख लेता हूँ. I'll tell you what the situation is.
ठीक है सर.
Okay. No IHT implications in this case because there is no gratuitous intent. What is gratuitous intent? A transfer made with an intention to, मतलब it's not a gift, right? You are transferring the business. उसमें gift वाला scene नहीं है, and because gift वाला scene नहीं है, you will not have inheritance tax. Yes, Samir, you were saying something.
No, sir. I was just asking that for the income tax part, it's considered that the
એ એને
assets are
અવાજ
transferred at
આવશે પેલા મ્યુટ
market
કરી
value, right?
દેશે બંધ કરે.
हाँ समीर बोलो.
So it's treated as if it is transferred at market value, correct? In case of income
Correct.
tax. But so then, how will gift holdover relief be there? Because that's only if the sale is at undervaluation, right?
गिफ्ट होल्ड ओवर रिलीफ, यस इट इज देयर ओनली इफ द सेल इज एट अंडर वैल्यूएशन। सो हर केस में गिफ्ट होल्ड ओवर रिलीफ है ऐसा नहीं है, बट सी दिस इज ट्रांसफर टू अ लिमिटेड कंपनी, यहाँ पे गिफ्ट होल्ड ओवर तो हमने बोला भी नहीं ना। और इनकॉर्पोरेशन रिलीफ और गिफ्ट होल्ड ओवर रिलीफ, इसका ना गिफ्ट होल्ड ओवर रिलीफ का मैं क्वेश्चन कराता हूँ विच डील्स विद दिस सिचुएशन। If the amount is transferred at, so there is no consideration charged in this case is what they are saying, कि all, so the deemed sale consideration, the market value is considered to be the deemed sale consideration. And then there is, okay, there could be one scenario in which the gift holdover relief applies. Just remind me to take up the question once. एक
हाँ
है
सर,
ऐसा क्वेश्चन, I'll
अब
take,
याद दिलाओ।
मैसेज में याद दिला दे,
ठीक है सर, डन।
कल ले लूंगा, ठीक है।
परफेक्ट सर।
ओके, कल या परसों, वन ऑफ द टू डेज, ठीक है। Then incorporation relief, where an individual transfers an unincorporated business to a company, the individual assets of the business are deemed to have been disposed of at the market value to the company. And how does the incorporation relief work? Uh, the total net chargeable gains on the deemed disposal of the individual assets are aggregated, and the total net chargeable gains are deferred against the deemed acquisition cost of shares in the company. अब the BADR and subsequent disposal is based on qualifying conditions. अब क्या होता है कि whenever I'm transferring my assets to the company, in most cases there will be no consideration. Why? Because I'm only changing the structure. It is still my business only. So there are no capital gains implications that way. And the disposal is, of course, at market value. Up because they don't want to levy this extra capital gains tax on you, they give you the they give you the option of an incorporation relief. इसमें क्या होगा? The whatever capital gain that you calculate on the basis of the deemed sale consideration, that amount will be subtracted from the cost of acquisition of shares in the new company. Okay. अब कैसे कैलकुलेट होगा? Where the consideration for transfer of the business is wholly shares, the total net gains on the individual chargeable assets transferred to the company are deferred. No chargeable gain arises at the time of incorporation. The base cost of the shares acquired is the market value of the unincorporated business less the deferred gains. सो ये तो डेफरल तो हर केस में ऐसे ही होता है, रोल ओवर के जैसे ही, कि वेयर द अमाउंट ऑफ गेन इज सब्ट्रैक्टेड फ्रॉम द कॉस्ट ऑफ द न्यूली अक्वायर्ड असेट। अब यहाँ पे गेन भी रियल नहीं है बिकॉज दीज आर डीम्ड सेल प्रोसीड्स, तो HMRC इज लाइक वैसे भी ये नकली गेन है। सो वील एडजस्ट इट अगेंस्ट द कॉस्ट ऑफ acquisition of shares. If the transfer is partly for shares, that means you are, what is the implication here where the transfer is partly for shares? What they are saying is, कि यार, if you got 100% shares in the company and no cash consideration, that means you just transferred the business. Structure was different, but it was still a business. When you transferred your business to a new company, you got some shares and you got cash. The fact that you got cash means you defer, that means you sold a stake in the overall business. So in that case, the incorporation relief is restricted, which is basically market value of share consideration upon market value of total consideration into the total gain. Now, it's not compulsory for you to apply the incorporation relief. You can disapply the incorporation relief if the gain on incorporation would be covered by AEA and or capital losses. मतलब बहुत गरीब कंपनी होगा ये, और बिकॉज 3,000 के जितना गेन भी नहीं आ रहा है इनका, or it would be beneficial to take advantage of BADR at the time of transfer, which may not be available on the eventual disposal of shares. But BADR is 10%. ये क्या impact हो रहा है उसका, you will have to evaluate that. And the dates for disapplication of the incorporation relief, 31st of Jan 28 for an incorporation that takes place in the tax year 24-25. ठीक है। Interaction with BADR, incorporation relief is given before considering BADR. If the transaction is wholly for shares, there will be no gain and therefore BADR is not considered. अब most other reliefs na, they are applied before considering BADR. And why is that? Because most of the other reliefs either defer the gain or they exempt the gain, or they lead to a reduction in the gain value. BADR and incorporation relief are the only two reliefs which reduce the rate of tax. So पहले जो exempt कराना है उसको exempt करा लो, excuse me, and then whatever amount is left on that particular amount, then you pay the amount of CGT by applying the business asset disposal relief wala provision. ठीक है. So this is how a cessation of a business is dealt with. In my opinion, it's one of the मतलब easier concepts secession of business because उसमें ज्यादा कुछ है नहीं. Just these elections and all ना वो थोड़ा सा critical part हो सकता है. So be a little careful about that. The alternative deferral using gift holdover relief provisions, I will take that up tomorrow. ठीक है. बाकी तो unincorporated business का और कुछ है नहीं. So we are done with that. And thank you so much for your time. While I am switching off the recording, I need to discuss something with you. So, जिनको जाना है वो जा सकते हैं because I'm done with my teaching or just a recap for today. Important. There's a difference in relief on incorporation and incorporation relief. Relief on incorporation कौन सा situation है? This is where you suffer a loss in the last year of trading as a sole proprietor, then you transfer the business to a company, and 80% of the consideration is received in shares. And later, whatever income you receive from that company in the form of salary, interest, dividend, तो जो आपका trading loss है, वो trading loss will be adjusted against these future incomes coming from the company. That is relief on incorporation. Incorporation relief, on the other hand, is that you transferred your business to a company, then and you did not transfer it at a consideration connected situation. So when you while calculating capital gains, you had to consider the market value of all the items. It was not a real capital gain, it was just a notional type of gain. So आपने gain calculate किया, फिर you calculated incorporation relief on the basis of whether the consideration was received fully in shares or partly in shares, and then whatever was that value, you reduce that value from the cost of acquisition of shares in the new company. So वो incorporation relief है, वो capital gain का relief है. Relief on incorporation is loss relief provision for closing year. ठीक है.
ठीक है सर, perfect. So if so like this is only for the for the individual who's transferred, right? So इसमें वो जो recapitalization losses का 5 years का ये है, that has no connection.
नो
जो
नो नो, वो
कंपनीज का
अलग है, वो अलग है, वो
जो,
पूरा अलग है, नो
हाँ
कनेक्शन.
सर ठीक है, वही वही डाउट था. ठीक है सर.
ठीक है. चलो, आई विल सी यू टुमारो मॉर्निंग 8:30 बोला है ना मैंने.
यस सर.
हाँ चलो, आई विल सी यू टुमारो. बाय.
थैंक यू
Thank
सर.
you, sir.